mention is that this is going to be recorded for tonight, but there'll be no video. Only thing that will be recorded will be us speaking and the slides which are going up. Might that be part of the questions, or are we going to stop that?
No, we're going to stop.
Still going to stop that before the questions.
You don't have the
Yeah.
permission.
So yeah, hopefully that's okay with everyone. I think that's everything covered. So you're here tonight, hopefully, to understand.
It's this one.
It's this one.
Sorry.
There's two screens. Sorry. Hopefully to see how we're helping communities to improve Bradford's air quality. Just so you know, I'm not an air quality specialist. That's not to avoid any horrible questions, but I am a geographer. So, but we have professionals in the room that can help you with your questions. So you're here to sort of hear sort of three topic areas. The Clean Air Zone, as you'll be aware, Bradford, like other local authorities in the country, have been required by the government to produce an air quality plan to show how it will bring nitrogen dioxide levels within legal limits within the closest possible time. And that was drawn out to be a clean air zone. The second thing is really about how Bradford University is working with the council to develop an open source urban observatory. And this is to monitor air quality. But part of two European projects. So we've got two projects going, which is called Life Critical, and another one which is called SCORE, which I know is going to be covered in slides later on by Sid. But this is about how the Urban Observatory has low-cost calibrated sensor devices, which are being calibrated against much more higher quality devices. And Horton Park, which I've already said, is one that Sid will be covering about how we're using air quality around Horton Park. Who wants to go first? Is it Sally? Is it me? Yeah. What do I need to do on here, Deval?
The last one.
Do you want me to open it on this one as well?
That'd be great. Well, I think I'll be able to see it on there.
Yeah, it's just whether your notes will be on. Do you just need your note?
I haven't got any notes.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So how will I navigate through the slides? Is it just the there? Great. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name's Sally. Sally Jones. I work in the Clean Air Plan team. Kane at the back also works with me, so give everyone a wave, Kane. So we're here tonight really to talk about the work that the university is doing that involves communities and schools and all that type of work, but we couldn't really talk about air quality in Bradford at the moment without telling you all about the Clean Air Zone as well. So just bear with me a minute. So we're going to tell you about why we need a Clean Air Zone, where it is, which vehicles are affected, a bit about what we're doing to make things easier for people, the support packages and grants that we've got for local businesses and people that are affected by the Clean Air Zone. I'll show you a little bit of the publicity that we've been doing that I do hope you've seen, and a little bit about health impact assessment that we are doing with Born in Bradford. And Roxana, give us all a wave, Roxana, from Born in Bradford. If there's any questions, we'll look to Roxana for the answers. I'll just tell you a little bit about the work that we're doing though together. So why do we need a clean air zone in Bradford? If you look at this picture here, this is the modelling work that was done. Anything that's red in colour is above the legal limit for nitrogen dioxide. So there aren't just tiny areas that are a problem. We've got kind of a massive, quite widespread problem across Bradford. And through our monitoring that Kane diligently goes out day in, day out doing for us, we've found that we've got areas of concern that are actually on the outer ring road, the inner ring road and areas in between, but also right up into Saltaire as well, up at Shipley. So we've ended up with quite a large clean air zone, which I'll show you a map of shortly. So you may be aware that other cities like Leeds next door have noticed that their traffic reduced last year because of COVID and their air quality improved and have now decided not to have a clean air zone. Bradford haven't made that decision, and we are glad that we didn't, because we are now finding that the data this year we're comparing 2020, we did see a reduction like Leeds, but this year we're now seeing levels that are actually worse than some of our 2019 data. Now that's it's not what we expected. We were expecting to see reductions because we're getting newer vehicles into the fleet and they're all becoming cleaner, but we're actually seeing a slight worsening. There's lots of theories about why that might be, but things like we haven't got 70% back onto the public transport yet. People are buying older vehicles. There's a lot more van deliveries going on. So, and it could just be the weather. We get different years where different things happen, but we are seeing that traffic flows are actually higher than before lockdown in some places as well. So we've still got a problem to meet the legal limit for air quality. So what we've done is through this type of modelling, we've worked out that by reducing the emissions from some vehicles, it'll mean that we can meet these legal limits for air quality. So what will that achieve? So you can see this shape on the map, which hopefully you can recognise as Bradford, around the outer ring road and off up to Saltaire. I'll show you a better map of that in a minute. But what it will achieve is, if you look at the map at the back, that is areas of deprivation in the city. So it's all split up into little areas where we can look at them in a more detailed way. And where the dark blue is at the back, that's the areas where we've got the worst deprivation. And if you look at the map at the front, the green areas are where we will see an improvement in air quality from the clean air zone. So you can see the darker green areas tend to correspond with the areas of deprivation. That's partly because where we've got worse deprivation, we tend to have worse air quality, worse traffic. People tend to live in areas that are heavily trafficked, and all these things kind of add together and you've got a worse picture for these people. But the good thing about this clean air zone is that it'll give us the biggest improvements in those deprived areas. As Adrian mentioned earlier, when we're doing this is all about health. It's about improving the health of our children, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But we do also have this legal imperative to act. Government have served the council with a ministerial direction straight from government that says that we have to implement a Class C charging clean air zone, and that we have to implement it as soon as possible. So we are literally on the phone to government. There's not a week goes by, we have a meeting with them and they want to know exactly what we've done, how fast we're moving with this. And I think there's probably as many people in government working on this as there is here at Bradford. If you have these slides afterwards, there's a link there that takes you to the ministerial direction if it's of interest to you. So this is the slightly more detailed map that actually shows you some of the roads, and you can start to get a feel for the area that's affected by the clean air zone. So I'm making an assumption here that you all understand what a clean air zone actually is. Is that the case? You put your hand up if you just don't know what one would be. I can explain it. Yeah, so a clean air zone is an area where we're looking to improve air quality, a sort of geographically defined area. So what we would do to control air quality in that area is we've put cameras up around the outside ring of it. We're actually going to have 330 cameras altogether, I think. And those cameras track vehicles as they come into the zone. And they can, the data is transmitted to the DVLA, and they can see what kind of vehicle it is, how old it is, and what its emissions are. And what we've done is set standards. Well, the government set standards for vehicles. So the older, dirtier ones, you can then control their access. So if you've got an old vehicle and you're coming into that clean air zone, there's a penalty to pay. So it's all about communications really, and letting people know that that's the case, so they can choose to not come in or hopefully upgrade their vehicles. So that's how a clean air zone works. So this just tells you a little bit more about the standards for clean air zone compliance. So in Bradford, we are going to be looking to control the emissions of buses, coaches, heavy goods vehicles, all vans and minibuses, and taxis. They're not actually on that list, aren't taxis. I think it's because they're really complicated to go into. And if anybody wants to talk to me about taxis, we'll do that afterwards. Because we've actually got some higher standards set for taxis in Bradford than there are in other places. But basically for all the other vehicles, they need to be a Euro 6. standard, which is sort of the cleanest, newest diesel vehicles that we've got. Ideally, there would be cleaner still, or there would be electric vehicles, but that's kind of a minimum standard, and we can model how much difference that makes to our air quality by moving those vehicles. If they're older than that, there's a daily charge that they would have to pay for coming into that area that I showed you. And that's for the bigger vehicles, £50 a day. And for the smaller vans and minibuses, it's £9 a day. So the good thing that government have done, they haven't just told us we've got to do this and that Bradford's got to bear the burden of that. They've also tried to make it so that it's not as difficult for the people that live and work in Bradford. We underwent a really rigorous process with government where we defined how much funding Bradford needed to help put this clean air zone in. We did manage to get one of the highest awards that have been got. We got over 30 million in clean air fund money to give out to businesses that need that to help them upgrade their fleets. Just to put that in context, I think Greater Manchester, that are 10 local authorities, and they'll have a huge clean air zone basically quite next door to us. They got 120 million across those 10 local authorities. So we've had quite a good settlement. And this slide, if you're interested, just sort of breaks down a little bit how that support's given out and how much those grants are. But just to say, we've already managed to give out all the money for the buses, and our whole bus fleet in Bradford will be clean air zone compliant. We've given out the money for coaches and the heavy goods vehicles. We've given out quite a lot of taxi funding, but that's still ongoing. And we're now giving out the money to the light goods vehicles and minibuses. There is also an exemption programme that allows for local businesses to exempt vehicles. So the reason that we're doing that is 90% of the traffic comes in from outside Bradford. So what we're trying to do is ease the burden on our people that live here and work here, and actually pass the burden of this to people from outside the district. Obviously, there's some larger lorries and what have you that come into our area, and for those that can show that they come into Bradford regularly, we've been able to support them as well, so that it doesn't affect local business. But there is exemptions for special vehicles and for our small businesses as well, if they want them. What we are finding is that businesses actually want to take the grants and upgrade their vehicles instead. So there will be some that go for exemptions, but quite a lot more than we thought are actually going for the support, which is great. So I don't know if anyone's seen any of our posters, which are all around the place. There's a lot out at the moment, and now you've seen this graphic, perhaps you will notice them more. If you see something blue on a poster, it will probably be talking about the clean air zone, the funding that we're putting out. So that's ongoing at the moment. We've had things on TV, radio adverts going out through radio leads, quite a lot on social media. It is a real challenge though, getting messages out to people at the moment. People aren't out and about quite as much, or I think social media kind of only gives you information about things you're already interested in. So it tends to not let you see new things. So it is a real challenge getting the information out. So this is some of the posters that we've had out on billboards. So they kind of go in a sequence. So these ones were the first ones where it's kind of got a darker look to it, and it's telling people that the clean air zone is coming to Bradford. We've kind of done this in 3 bursts, and it's trying to point out the health reasons why we might want to do that. So this is saying about how 1 in 5 children in Bradford already have a breathing problem. Then this is a slightly cleaner one. It's starting to tell them about the grant support that's available and to come forward and get that grant. So that's been quite successful. We've had a lot of grant applications. They're coming thick and fast. So obviously the message is getting out. And then there'll be the 3rd burst just before the clean air zone goes live. And that's kind of a cleaner look to it. And it's sort of saying that the clean air zone is here and how to get support if you still need it. So this area, I don't know if you recognise it, but this is Shipley Airedale Road, where we've got some of the worst air quality in the district. It looks really quiet at the point at which this photograph is taken. But on the left, that's our air quality station there. And it's just to show you that road is quite often full of 6 lanes of traffic, sat congested. and there are people living in the flats at the side of it. So that's the kind of issues that we've got. So this slide shows you some of the engagement work that we've been doing with Born in Bradford and Roxana's team to get the messages out and to talk to some of those communities that we find difficult to get communications to. So we've held workshops with taxi drivers and others that may or may not have got that information out to. Also, like the university, Born in Bradford have been doing some great work with schools, getting the kids involved, getting them out, measuring air quality. And this is just to show you some of the kind of things. This backpack measures air pollution, and the children have been out walking through different routes, finding where's cleaner and where is more polluted. So the reason that we're doing all this is because air pollution has a huge impact on health. And we know that every year in Bradford, the equivalent of over 200 people die. Now, what that actually means is that everybody's health is affected. It actually makes asthma worse. You know, when the weather's cold and you can smell traffic fumes, you may feel that on your chest. But also some of these tiny particles that are in the air are actually, you breathing them into your lungs and straight into your bloodstream. And that's where some of the longer term effects come in, like stroke, cancer and cardiovascular disease. And they're just still finding new links of things of how air pollution affects people, and particularly how it affects young people, as they are more vulnerable and older as well. But they're actually finding that those carbon particles, they're finding them in the brains of people and actually affecting them in Alzheimer's and all sorts of things linked. So I could talk all night about the health effects, but that's why we want to deal with this. So this just tells you a little bit more about the work that we're doing with Born in Bradford. So we're the only city in the UK to be looking at health alongside our clean air zone. It's a really tricky thing to be able to do a thing and see how much difference it makes, but we're really lucky that we've got some really clever researchers here in Bradford who've already been looking at health of the city for a really long time. So we can look at what difference it makes when we make a change like this, when the council changes something in a big way. And this just shows you this graph, kind of what we might expect to see. So if you think the red line is the clean air zone going in, we know already what health is like, and we would hope to see that after we've made this change and reduce this pollution, we see that difference in the health data. We're also looking at other things with Born in Bradford as well. They're on our project board for the clean air zone and keeping an eye on things like equalities and the health impacts of everything we do, and just giving us that a bit of advice as a council on where things can go wrong with policy developments like this. So it's really welcome relationship. So if you want to read anything more about the clean air zone, we've got a website. That's the address for it. There's all sorts of information on there, and feel free to get in touch with me, sally.jones at bradford.gov.uk, and I'll give you any information that you might want. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Sally, think you're going next, Devise? Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Sally.
If you can jot down any questions and we'll take them after the presentation, if that's okay.
Hi, hi everyone. Welcome and thanks for attending. I'm Dr. Dhaval Thakkar. I'm an associate professor in computer science here at the University of Bradford. And I'm going to talk about what is Bradford Urban Observatory, how citizens can access it, how it could be potentially beneficial to our city, but also residents, and also how residents can contribute to it. So that's what I'm going to cover. This work is carried out in close collaboration with Bradford City Council, and it's funded by two European Commission funded projects. One is SCORE and other is Life Critical. So I believe Sadie is going to cover Life Critical, so I'm going to cover SCORE briefly. So SCORE is a European Commission funded project. It stands for Smart Cities and Open Data Reuse. It is a project we started in 2018. It's going to end of next year. It's all about in SCORE, how do you develop replicable smart city solutions such as air quality monitoring, for example, and under three themes, which is mobility, water, and environment. It has, in terms of project partners, it has 9 cities, including Bradford City Council, and 3 universities, including us in the Europe. So Sally has kind of comprehensively covered, the air quality and air pollution problem in Bradford. I just wanted to add a little bit more to it in that dimension. So she talked about tiny particles, which are often referred as PM, particulate matter. So there are 2 types, PM 2.5 and PM 10. They refer to their sizes, and that's 2.5 microns and 10 microns. So that's quite tiny particles. As he said, if you inhale and you have a long-term exposure, it is not good for health in terms of long-term exposure. This data set is from 2018, and what it shows is that even though in terms of the annual average, which was just below 10 microgram per meter cube, but that's the limit WHO has recommended in terms of annual average. So we were quite close to it. UK's PM 2.5 legal limit is a bit relaxed compared to WHO and other organizations. So I think when we're talking about clean air zone, we're talking about air pollution. One of the things one has to do is, how well the clean air zone is doing. Is it making an impact in terms of reducing the pollution? And that's where the extra monitoring can be helpful. I'm quite aware of the fact that council is already increasing the monitoring, which is done by them. But we are also, as a researcher, looking at alternative ways. So generally, this monitoring, which is done by the government and councils, involves monitoring stations like this. So you might have seen this box, and the one Sally was showing had a box like this. It's a very high grade, high quality equipment being used for monitoring air quality in different parameters, including PM 2.5 and PM 10. What we are doing as scientists is, can we find a cheaper alternative compared to those monitors, and provide complementary readings, because they are high grade, high quality. You can't replace them, but if we can provide something which is complementary, and this is where we look at low cost sensors, and if we can use them mainly for measuring PM 2.5 and PM 10. The problem with these sensors is they are low cost, but they're also often low quality as well. So it requires a lot of calibration and a very good calibration. So what we have done in our lab is that we have looked at number of options we have for measuring PM 2.5 and PM 10, and that's what this diagram shows in the middle. And we use a lot of machine learning methods and statistical methods to calibrate these devices against reference nodes. And we come up with 2 types of devices. One in the box on the left-hand side of the screen is the indoor air quality monitoring device. On the right-hand side is with the pipes is the device for outdoor air quality monitoring. The other thing you need for scaling up air quality monitoring is community engagement. And citizen science is one of the best way to do it. It's all about citizen participating in a scientific projects like this, air quality monitoring. It requires technology support, as it says in one of the bubbles, and that's where these sensors come into play. But there are also well-established methodologies and principles which guides this sort of experiments. For example, this one, very highly regarded European Citizen Science Association principles. There could be different level of involvement of the citizens, all the way from level 1, which is just crowdsourcing, where citizens just record things for you, might be taking a picture, providing a report in a particular area, to all the way to level 4, funnily called extreme citizen science, but a good one, where there is a lot of collaboration happens in defining the problem, what sort of data needs to be collected, why that needs to be collected, and what analytics needs to be done, and so on. So there is a well-established methodologies and principles around that. And ultimately, it should produce open data, because that's what it is about. Citizens are taking part, they are giving their time and efforts. Ultimately, this effort should produce open data, which is the principle number 7 in those 10 principles. So when we were looking at deploying these devices as part of this scaling up process, we were looking for 25 plus locations in Bradford, and we wanted to be very strategic about the selection. Our natural choice was using schools, doing workshops with children and the living devices outside the schools. But we wanted to be very strategic. So one of the parameters we considered was clean air zone. Okay, so we wanted to look at the distance from the clean air zone so that those devices and sensors are fairly distributed inside the clean air zone, but also outside as well, looking at its distance. Other thing we looked at is the indices of multiple deprivation, or IMD. So we were looking at different area with different IMD parameters. If you don't know about IMD, it's about looking at different domains such as income, employment, education, and defining different areas according to that. So that led us to selection of 25 schools we wanted to target for this deployment. And as I said, we were kind of fairly, it was fairly well distributed. So you can see on the right-hand side, it tells you that distance from clean air zone. A lot of them, 7 of them are within the zone. Some all the way up to more than 3 kilometers. There are 8 of them. This was what our ideal list was. We were also looking at the NO2 levels as well. What were the projected NO2 levels? So what was the projected NO2 level in a few years' time for those areas? And we wanted to sort of have a very good distribution there as well. And obviously the IMD rank I mentioned as well. To complement to those 25 devices, we also wanted to deploy more devices in a particular park to do a bit more complementary analysis. And we went with Horton Park, which was one of the targeted parks as part of Life Critical project. And Sid is going to cover that one. Yes, thank you. And I think what we did was there were 10 outdoor air quality sensors we wanted to deploy. So the one which are highlighted in the red are the 10 outdoor air quality sensors we had planned to deploy, and we were successful in doing that. But also the one which is highlighted with a big black circle is where we wanted to do indoor air quality monitoring as well to see how outdoor impacts indoor, and looking at other parameters as well. Part of this, we had to also install a LoRaWAN gateway, which is a way the sensors can communicate, because they are sending data real time, and they need these are Internet of Things devices. They need internet connected all the time. So we also ended up deploying a LoRaWAN gateway. As you can see on the left-hand image, one of those gateways are LoRaWAN gateway installed by the council for us. And there is a team at work as well. So, okay, so with all this sensor deployment, we are able to share that data, which is coming from the sensors in real time. And this system is live at the moment, the Bradford Urban Observatory. It's the URL you can use now on is smartbradford.uk. And I'm just going to explain a little bit more about this. So I have a bit of demo how once you go to smartbradford.uk, how it works. So you type that in. So it's a web application. And yeah. And then there are a few smart solutions. You click on Urban Observatory there. And a page like this pops up. It has a little form on the left-hand side and a map, geographical map of Bradford. You can zoom in, zoom out, and you can see all the sensors. These markers are the sensors on the map. So there are about 26 outdoor devices which are deployed. So you can zoom out and see all those devices, and you can zoom in to see where exactly they are located. Okay. And if you want to see the data from these sensors, PM 2.5 and PM 10, you have to just click on one of these markers. So I'm trying to do this on the sensor near the Horton Park on a busy junction. I click on that. That fills in the sensor ID on the left-hand side form. I select the pollutant, which is PM 2.5, and I want data for a week. If you're doing it for first time, it will ask you to fill in the CAPTCHA as well. So this is the data for a week from that sensor coming all the way till 15 minutes before you use this. So every 15 minutes, sending the data. And on the x-axis, you see the date and time. On the y-axis, you see the reading, PM 2.5 reading. And this is a busy road, so there are a lot of spikes. You can see that there are spikes going over 20 there. You can also look at any data point and you can see when exactly that reading was taken and what was the reading. So in terms of number of sensors, which this web application will be able to show, there are 26 which are outdoor devices, 10 which are indoor. Obviously, we are not sharing that indoor devices data from this platform. There is a separate platform for those participants to use. But these 26 devices are there. In terms of proximity to roads, out of this 26, 16 are, you can say, quite close to the roadside, less than 50 meters. And the other 10s are near to far from the roadside, 5 each. Each sensor gives 96 readings per day. That's 2,500 readings, total readings from all the sensors per day. If this all works fine, we have close to 1 million readings in a year. So this observatory is designed with a lot of efforts by the council, by the EARS, funded by this project and other partners, with the idea that it provides an open data, open air quality data for our city. There are other purposes as well, and I'm going to go through some of them in a bit more detail, such as clean air zone evaluation, how it can help the community as an educational resource, and so on. So to start with, how it potentially can help with CAZ evaluation, because obviously there are interventions done to stop the polluting vehicles coming into part of Bradford, and it's a fairly large clean air zone, so there is no way around. So it's not only going to make difference in the vehicles which are traveling there, but around the clean air zone and as a district as a large. So and the clean air zone is targeted at vehicles and pollution from the vehicles, right? And what we are, and because the placement of sensors we have done, which is quite strategic in terms of the location within the clean air zone, outside the clean air zone, and also we know that what sort of NO2 values, what sort of pollution level is expected going forward, that would be quite helpful. And I'm going to give you an example of how, even though the data we have is just for a month or 2 months, there is not a lot of data to provide the evidence, but how something like this sort of real-time monitoring can help. So this is a zoomed in image taken from the Urban Observatory. There are 2 devices I've highlighted. One is HP06, which is, if you're familiar with Great Horton Road Junction with cross lane, it's quite a busy junction, and you see a lot of traffic there. That's HP06, so something to remember. And then you have HP10, which is just outside the park on the Cecil Avenue, away from the busy junction, more closer to the park. And if you see HP06, so you can see it right now. Just type in sensor ID HP06, and you will see. If you look at for a month's data, this is what will pop up. And as you can see there are many spikes, and I'll cover that one later on. But if you look at the UK limit, which is 25 microgram per meter cube, and you can see that the week from November 12 to November 18, there are many times it exceeds that UK limit. It far exceeds the limit set by WHO, right? 10 microgram per meter cube. Now, UK has something which is annual average. It's not a one-off reading. It's not a week's reading. But ultimately, I believe that they would be moving in some sort of restriction in terms of how many times you can exceed those high values as well. It's kind of a progressive, thinking. So that kind of clearly shows that, something which is roadside next to busy junction, this sort of results are we already seeing from the real-time data. The largest peak you've seen, which is 200, which is 20 times more than WHO allowed limit. It's one peak is at the bonfire night, November 5th. And that's what you see there. And not only at the bonfire, we also see, and this is real-time data, you can see it yourself. This was, reported across many schools where the census are, where we're seeing some peaks which were up to 5 times higher than their typical average. Also, just comparing their HP6 with HP10, a little bit more analysis. Again, just using 1 month's data. So that is not a lot of data, but just using 1 month's data against roadside compared to something which is near the park. The average, PM2.5 average for the one on the road was 8 compared to just 3 for the HP10 near the park. It gets interesting because when you look at the rush hours, morning rush hour, which I define 7 to 10, there might be different opinion on that, but a lot of people define 7 to 10 a.m. Then if you look at the readings taken from HP6, 25% of the readings were over 10, which is the WHO recommended limit annual average, while for HP10, it was just 6%. If you look at the readings, percentage of readings from the total readings taken in a month, for anything exceeding values of 20, 10% of the readings. That's 10% of reading which were exceeding 20 for the one which is near the roadside, HP06. While the stark contrast is for HP10, there aren't any values which are over 20 for morning rush hour. Yeah. Going forward, it's a similar pattern with evening traffic hours, which I've defined 4 to 8 p.m. for this analysis. And you can see that the reading values for were exceeding a value of 10 with similar percentage, more than 20, about 22%, while the HP10 staying for 6%. And again, you can see that there aren't any values over 20 when it comes to HP06. Okay, so it's a small amount of data. There is a lot of data to be collected, but something like this is already showing up. Again, we look at the school, which is one of the schools we have on Leeds Road in our census, which is close proximity to a busy road, obviously, Leeds Road, and we can already see that there are many spikes there as well in that particular week you have seen. So just coming back to, this repository is, the observatory is there for people to use. That's the website. That's how people can access it from now on. What do we think about how do people can benefit as a citizen or a business? You can monitor the data from the platform. You would be able to get an idea of low and high pollution in real time. You can use the data to support your community efforts. If you're trying your community to cycle more, walk more, reduce vehicle idling, again, is that making a difference? Different interventions, and you might think about more than I can. You can use, if you're a business or if you're a citizen who would like to code, you can use this data to build tools, visualization, combined with other data about traffic, which council has put it out there, green spaces, events, and so on. So there are many opportunities. We'll not be able to do all the analytics. People can use this data. And schools, we hope that this could be used as an educational resource. If you are a citizen thinking about how can I contribute as a citizen, if you are willing to host a device, we have been able to get to 13 schools, not 25 as we planned. So some of the areas are underrepresented. So we're looking for citizens, and we already started getting inquiry, and we're supporting some to host devices for 3 to 6 months. It needs Wi-Fi and it needs power power connection. In terms of data, it's not a lot of data. It's just 10 MB data per month. That's watching less than a minute's YouTube video, for example. We have a list of areas we really want to target to increase the monitoring. If you're willing to take part in our indoor air quality study, I haven't covered that here, what we're trying to do there, but there is a device, a separate device, which you can host in home, and there is a digital diary to be filled in. I'll leave this email address at the end as well. That's the way to get in touch, or you can directly get in touch with me. I'm almost done. So our ambition with this Urban Observatory going forward next year and few more years is we want to expand these sensors scaling up to 50+ sensors, more community hosted, as I said. We want to, hopefully with more funding, we want to get more parameters in: traffic, flooding, water quality, noise, etc. We want to release this data in more structured format, such as RDF. That's always helpful. We want to involve, most importantly, more community. And we are planning a big event where we involve at least those 13 schools which have supported us, school kids, to come and design these devices with us and see how it goes to the observatory and exercises around that. Almost done. I think I would like to, it's a lot of effort, and these guys have from the council have supported us all the way. I just want to thank my team here at the University of Bradford. I'll just ask them to just raise their hand. Bhupesh, who is the senior researcher with us. Ramiz, who is not here. He just got married, so he's busy in South Africa. Rina, John, and Hussam. I don't think Hussam is here, but he's our intern from Jordan. And we do this sort of work. There are other projects as well through IoT Innovation Lab. And again, on the smartbradford.uk, you will see those links as well. The collaborators, contributors, and partners: Sally, Adrian, Sid, Sarah from Bradford City Council, friends of Horton Park, Agot from Sweden, Swedish Environmental Research Institute, Eva from JSP in Sweden, and Sagnik from IIT Delhi, India. And Sagnik always tells me, you are talking about the air pollution, you come to Delhi, you'll know what air pollution is. So it's contextual. Yeah. So collaborators, I just want to thank, I don't know whether any school people have been able to make it. We invited them, but these are the 13 schools, wonderful schools, which has helped us. Thank you very much. That's.
So, yeah, my name's Sid Simpson. I work for the council. This last presentation isn't specifically about air quality. It's more about how urban parks can help the environment in general, especially related to health and well-being. So I'm part of the Life Critical project. So that's climate resilience through involvement of local citizens. And it's the LIFE programme is the EU's funding instrument for the environment and climate action. And we're looking to address problems that communities might have in building climate resilience and indeed improving the local environment in terms of their health and well-being. So we're using local parks as part of this scheme. And a key part of it, again, is involving the communities, local people, and giving themselves some sort of sense of co-ownership of these parks. So it's a real part of their community. And there are two European city demonstrators, one in Dordrecht, which is near Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and one here in Bradford. So as you've heard, Horton Park is the one we've chosen. It's about half a mile from here, and it's a mature park. It dates back to the Victorian era, and it's a useful green space lying between the really busy road, Great Horton Road, and the housing estate, Canterbury Housing Estate. And our partners in Dordrecht have a similar project. They have a large park, and they're looking to address air quality issues there in the same ways we're looking to address air quality in and around Horton Park with the help of Darvel and the SCORE project, who are putting all these sensors for us. So in Dordrecht, they have a park improvement scheme and a residential area. So the residential area at the top of the map is going to be pedestrianised. This is a zoomed in version. It's going to be pedestrianised, greened, lots of planting taking place there, water features, and they're going to monitor the air quality there to see how it improves. So in a similar way to Darvel and his team, they've put in a series of air quality monitors, both through the park at the bottom of the map there, along the really busy main road, and in the area they're going to pedestrianise, to monitor how much improvement there is in the air quality. And here are a few of the sensors that they've deployed. So parks in general are resources for the community health and well-being. I mean, the green spaces, and they provide a better, cleaner environment than a lot of our urban areas, not least in air quality. And the places for recreation and relaxation, and somewhere to exercise and de-stress. But of course, we need communities involved with that. They need to be active and participate, and to get the benefits or the maximum benefits from these parks. And indeed, there are multiple community health and well-being partners involved at Horton Park, not least Friends of Horton Park. And Born in Bradford, we've already heard of them. It's one of the largest research studies in the world of its type, tracking the lives of over 30,000 Bradfordians. And they're looking at health and well-being of families. And there's Better Place and Better Start Bradford, again, working with families, especially with young children. So, for example, Better Place is looking at improvements to local parks and outdoor spaces, providing healthier and happier environments for babies, young children and families. Also finding ways to reduce exposure to harmful traffic fumes. So again, the air quality issue is really, really important. There's another project, Act Early, which is looking to bring communities into projects like the ones we've just mentioned, and devise new and exciting projects to improve health and happiness of local families. So what sorts of things can we do in a park to help health and well-being? Well, in terms of physical exercise, the evidence is that that's really good for us. There's the phenomenon known as park run, which takes place in hundreds of parks across the country every week, and also abroad as well. And the great thing is, you don't have to be a marathon runner, you don't have to be Mo Farah, although some good runners do take part. Even if you just want to turn up and have a walk with your friends and your neighbours, that's fine as well. It's a really good way to socialise, get to know people in your community, and have some good fun, getting some physical exercise and fresh air. And parks can also be great for educational purposes. So this on the left, the photographs here are clips from BBC Countryfile, which was shown a couple of weekends ago, fairly recently. This is Dr. Phil Wheeler of the Open University, and he was showing how the local communities, the school children can do tree surveys, they can measure the trees, they can identify them, and they can map them. There's an app called Treezilla, and you can upload the details onto there, provide a map and show where the trees in your neighbourhood are, what they are, and how big they are, and all the details can be logged on there. And he also did this workshop demonstrating how trees are really useful in terms of flood risk, the way that they hold back water, can transpire water, and stop water running off and causing flood problems. And I'll mention that in a few minutes as well. But it's not just physical well-being, and parks are just not there for the young, they're there for everybody. And a recent approach to mental health is social prescribing, and indeed physical health. So instead of doctors giving you drugs, antidepressants, they'll recommend you have certain activities. It might be something in the park, getting outside, exploring nature, and parks are great for that. And there's a couple of examples here in Keighley, Cliff Castle Park. They have a well-being walk, a sensory well-being walk, whereby people can really absorb the whole status of the park, not just what it looks like, but the sights and the sounds, the smells, you know, the flowers in summer, the sound of the water, and even the touch, the feel of the materials used in the park. And these are always really good things to ground people in a nicer place, a nice environment. So that's great for people with dementia. And there's a small park again in Keighley, right in the city centre, designed just to help people with dementia. But coming back to air quality in Horton Park, here's a map of Horton Park and the surrounding area. And the dotted line is actually, I believe, at the edge of the Clean Air Zone. And on there, I think this is from the 2018 air quality monitoring that was done for the council. Sally will know more about that. But generally, the green areas have good air quality, the yellow not so good, and the red really quite poor. And as you'd expect, along the main roads and the main junctions, it's really poor air quality. Whereas in Horton Park, as you see, it's a lot cleaner. So suppose you lived here and you visited the mosque quite frequently. What would you do? It's a nice 10-minute walk, 15-minute walk, some nice exercise. But would you go along Great Horton Road with all the traffic and the air pollution? Or would you go through the park? Again, another simple example. You might live over here and you've got a young family and your children go to the school down here. Would you really want them walking up Great Horton Road, you know, being exposed to the traffic, the pollution, the risk of crossing all these side streets? Or would you go down alongside the park, which is much nicer? And as Darvel's recent data suggests, is a lot cleaner. He was showing you the HP6 and HP10 results.
HP6 was Great Horton Road, yeah.
Yeah, so that just shows the difference that people can make quite simply in their lifestyles. And of course, looking into the future, there's climate change. We're going to get warmer and wetter winters, hotter and drier summers, more frequent and intense weather extremes, and parks can help here. So Horton Park has a flood risk problem. As it's an old park, the drainage infrastructure really doesn't have the capacity going forward to deal with the heavier rainfall that's expected. What we see here is an aerial photograph with the Environment Agency surface water flood risk mapping on it. That's a really extreme event, by the way. But it shows how the water flows through the park and the adjacent roads to Horton Park Avenue at the top of the screen there, and it causes flooding outside the mosque. So we could improve the drainage infrastructure, could dig up all the pipes, replace them with bigger pipes at great expense, and that might solve the problem in the park, but all it does is push it downstream to where we haven't improved the drainage infrastructure, and you'll get flooding further downstream. So we can actually use a natural solution using sustainable drainage, which mimics nature in managing this surface water runoff. And the idea is just to slow down the flow across the park, provide space for it so the water can pool and pond when it's really heavy and just infiltrate slowly, which takes the strain off the existing drainage infrastructure, which means its capacity can cope. And the great thing about sustainable drainage is it uses natural methods, so it can also improve the quality of the water running off the land, but it also involves planting different species, planting trees, which can encourage biodiversity. It can encourage pollinators, for example, butterflies and bees, and that in turn makes the park a nicer place, which provides even better amenity value. So it's a win-win, really. So here's a few examples. Just some gentle landscaping to provide space for water, some planting, maybe replacing some of the roads in the park with permeable paving so the water doesn't run off really quickly. It can infiltrate into the ground and not overwhelm the existing drainage infrastructure. Another problem with climate change is expected heat waves. And in urban areas where there's lots of brick and roads, and concrete and cars in direct sunlight, the temperatures can get really, really hot. And that's really unpleasant, actually. And for the elderly and the infirm can actually be dangerous. But an easy way to get around that, or at least to help, is to introduce shade into the environment. And trees are really good for that. So not only trees helping with flood risk, they're helping with shade and climate change, and to a certain extent, I think, air quality. So trees are a good thing. So we have lots of schemes across Bradford looking at planting trees. We have trees for every child project. So 1 tree for every primary school child will be planted in 2 years. So that's 55,000 trees. And there's projects like Trees for Streets, all adding and contributing to the White Rose Forest scheme, which is looking at increasing tree cover across the north of England. Another one is Trees for Cities. And again, this is from Countryfile about a year ago, showing how they were planting trees. And this is right next to Horton Park. And they were giving fruit trees to residents of the Canterbury estate to plant there. So trees are really great. Parks are great in terms of addressing the challenges we have in terms of our local environment. And we have lots of parks across Bradford, so they're a great resource which can help improve our environment and just sort of reduce the impacts of climate change going forward. So to finish, we've heard Born in Bradford, what a great job they're doing. Part of their research came up with 10 key findings for policy and practice. And I won't go through all 10 of them, but I'll highlight a few of them. Number 1, reduce air pollution to improve the health of our children. And number 2, improve access and availability to high quality green spaces to enhance physical and mental health. Also, deprived areas need improved provision of services and healthy environments. And finally, number 10, a city's research infrastructure can act as a springboard for investment. So I think what you've seen tonight and all the projects that are getting together and collaborating with communities, not least the University of Bradford and also Bradford Council, are providing that research infrastructure. And hopefully that will show benefits for the people of Bradford. Thank you.